Welcome to this EDUcast, proactively managing for great user experiences, sponsored by Nectar and Telecom Reseller. Today we have Stephen Purcell, Senior Director, Global Cisco Program Management at Nectar, and this is Gary Auden. As we always do, we discuss our agenda. We're going to talk about user experiences. Something important for a lot of you, managing UC is somewhat different than just managing voice over IP. We're going to talk about challenges, troubleshooting errors, removing barriers, an operations model, and discuss tools you need to do this effective management. So let's start off, Stephen, with this first slide. Delivering great user experiences are required to keep and gain new customers. What does Frost & Sullivan have to say about this?
The gist of this slide is the fact that in today's market, in order to deliver an exceptional user experience, you have to see the user experience in real time. And Frost & Sullivan is saying that in order to actually deliver a quality user experience, you have to see calls as they're taking place, and then how the network is affecting those calls and be able to correlate between them.
I brought this up in the agenda discussion. Managing unified communications is more than managing voice over IP. Stephen, what are the challenges that have changed the management requirements?
Today's unified communications networks are more than just point-to-point calls. There's actually several factors that impact the quality of these calls today, including multiple vendors and platforms on networks that span multiple locations. There's several different types of endpoints, including both voice, video, and soft phones. Another challenge is actually bracketing the SBC to know which side of the SBC could be affecting those calls. Other challenges include hosted collaboration platforms these days and visibility around those from the customer prem to the provider prem. And then also deployments are just no longer just a PBX with phones connected to those. They encompass not only calling, but video, IM&P, and conferencing.
As we look at this, UC has 3 health domains that are mentioned on this slide. There are 3 domains. Would you differentiate one from the other for us?
Absolutely. So you have the platform domain, which encompasses your server, services, operating systems, basically anything that the unified communications environment runs on. Then you have the network domain, which is what the unified communication obviously uses to communicate over. So this includes WAN, wireless, internet, and carrier services. And then your endpoints, which is what you're actually using to do the communication. So your headsets, your operating systems, your desktops, your phones themselves, and et cetera.
The word challenges comes up on this slide, all right? When we look at the 3 domains, we discover operational challenges. Would you discuss those, please?
So one of the challenges between these 3 domains, as you can see here, is there's a problem with visibility across these domains. You have these demarcation points, which causes a challenge for companies in order to do troubleshooting across the domain. So it's very difficult to diagnose quality issues. Each of these domains will typically require their own set of management tools to monitor and manage them. Traditional tools also can't see calls, and then the call path and help. The call path and health is limited to trace routes and very basic types of troubleshooting. And then there is issues to span various operational platforms across each one of these. And in each domain, they all have their individual problems, from key health indicators that you need to see to application servers, router health, route changes, WAN performance, SIP trunks, and then from the endpoints, from client locations, software versions, software and operating system performances. All of these things can impact unified communications operations and quality.
Would you say that one of the challenges here is the word visibility, that you have many pieces you see, but they're not integrated together?
That's right. And companies today have tools. And so a common misconception is you'll talk to companies about, do you have tools to manage these environments? Usually the question will come back, yes, we have tools. But the tools are very segregated, and they're stuck within these silos. And so being able to know how, say, platform is affecting endpoint, or how the endpoint is affecting the network, or the network is affecting all of these, and to see across them becomes the challenge.
Let's talk about troubleshooting a unified communications ecosystem.
This is a very typical troubleshooting scenario that companies will look into. So what they'll do is they'll deploy Wiresharks throughout the environment. This is where they're having a problem in the environment and they're trying to narrow in on exactly what's going on here. And so they'll deploy Wireshark, they'll sniff some packets on the wire, and then what they have to do is they have to try to make the problem happen again or wait for the problem to happen again in order to try to narrow in on what's going on.
How do we remove the barriers encountered in comprehensive unified communications management? What does Nectar do here?
So this is an example of what Nectar software will do. We're actually able to, just like you said, remove those barriers and see across these environments. So we're able to consolidate the view. We can see in real time how all of the calls are being affected from the actual platform to the network to the endpoint, all on one view. We know that our network events actually impacting certain user sessions. We can say, we can also have proactive SLA enforcement across these for, say, managed service providers or hosted collaboration providers that may be providing this as a service. And then there's a very significant reduction in time to identifying the root cause. And so we'll be able to say, if a call was having problems, was it a headset issue? Was it the OS the soft phone was running on top of? Was it a routing problem that was taking place? Was it a SIP trunk problem? Was it a server that the environment was running on top of? All of these different things we're able to correlate within one view.
We have been at the game of unified communications management for years. Is there a maturity model we can follow?
Yes, this is the natural progression of the 4 steps of the IT operational maturity model. The example of this is in a reactive world for kind of steps 1 and 2, is that a company would have no warning that traffic has either stopped flowing or that you're having a problem with unified communications. Where you actually want to progress to is in the last 2 examples here, where you're both predictive and preemptive. You want to be able to detect that there is a problem early or as it's actually happening in flight, apply a fix to that, and then reroute traffic appropriately or fix the problems as they're happening or before they actually happen.
When I look at unified communications, there's actually multiple audiences out there. What are the right tools for each audience?
So each audience is going to have a different perspective of what they want to see. So the NOC and operations teams will want to see global views. They're also going to want to see what we're going to call dependency trees, or to be able to isolate very quickly what could be impacting certain pieces of an environment. And then they're going to want to take a look at session quality by location. The support teams are the teams that are comprised of tier 1 and 2 troubleshooting, and then also 3 and 4 to get down into very deep analysis as to what's causing the problem. So these guys need to be able to really dig into the issues to find out what's happening. Then you have your management layer that's going to need to see health and performance dashboards. They're going to see custom reporting based on adoption. The management team is going to want to see how the environment is affecting the ROI of their unified communications infrastructure and customize reporting around that.
Now, Nectar has the UCMP product suite. What does UCMP stand for, and what are the elements of this product suite?
UCMP stands for Unified Communications Monitoring Platform. That consists of Perspective, which is our synthetic monitoring tool that you can use for pre-assessment testing for networks or sites that you may be wanting to roll unified communications out to ahead of time. And also kind of ongoing validation that QoS and the network paths are working the way they should. You have Foundation, which gives you server health and availability and capacity planning and monitoring of the environment itself. And then you have UCD, which gives you very detailed correlated diagnostics and real-time troubleshooting. You also have reporting and analytics, and then event management and integration.
How does UCMP support the management teams, and how does this relate to Cisco?
Sure. So how this relates to Cisco is we kind of start at the top with proactive monitoring. So you want to get the health and availability of the entire UC infrastructure itself. So this is going to take a look at CUCM, meeting server, expressways, all of the different Cisco Unified Communications platform pieces to give proactive monitoring on those components. This is going to allow you to dig into how the network is actually affecting those calls, and then what's happening to the calls in real time. Operations and reporting. So this is going to give you all of your reporting about how CUCM is functioning and adoption of certain components. And then overall health and performance and trending reporting, resource utilization, etc.
We were looking at a picture earlier in this EDUcast of troubleshooting an ecosystem. How is it different? How does Nectar enhance the troubleshooting effort with your products?
So this is an example of our Unified Communications Diagnostics platform. So instead of having Wireshark deployed everywhere, UCD is actually picking up the real-time calls across the network. So you no longer have to go back and try to recreate the problem or try to figure out what's happening. We're going to pick this up in real time and notify you as to what's going on with calls and how the network is impacting those calls, as well as off-prem and on-prem calling. So you can see here on the left where you're actually bracketing the SBC. I will know how the provider is affecting the calls compared to how my network is impacting those calls. So I now know if it's a provider-side problem or an on-prem problem.
One of the points I always think is important for management is the words global summary, something from the top. How does Nectar provide a global summary? What does it cover?
In this view, you can see where we're giving you a single view of platform health events, trends by site, user experience by location, and session quality trends and volume patterns by modality, both voice and video.
Drilling down to integrated search tools provides what kind of insights?
So not only do you want to see individual users and the quality of the calls that they had, you also want to be able to look at conferences, and you want to be able to drill down into those conferences, see who was in those conferences and how the infrastructure may have been impacting those conference calls.
Looking at one data element isn't enough. What does a management team need to gain perspective?
So this is our perspective module. And so what this is going to do is it allows you to put clients out within your environment. Now, a lot of companies will use this as a starting point as they're deploying, say, a new site. They'll want to make sure that voice is going to perform the way they're expecting it to on these new sites. But a lot of companies will also keep this as ongoing QoS validation. So these little clients that sit out there, while they don't register back to, say, CUCM, they do continuously talk to themselves. So they'll make sure that the path across the network is flowing the way it should. Did QoS leave one endpoint and arrive at the other endpoint? Were the markings the way they were intended to be as they arrived at the other end? And just an ongoing validation that the network, that calls are flowing across the network like they're supposed to.
I see the acronym UCF on this slide. What does it mean and how does it influence the design?
So UCF is our foundation product, and what you're looking at here is you can tell by the UCF icon at the bottom that it's pointing to all of the different devices in the network. So this is giving you that proactive monitoring of all of your Cisco elements. So we're talking to the expressways, TMS, the SBC, CUCM, CMS, and getting the health and performance and trending and analysis of what's happening with these different endpoints.
The next diagram covers the UCD Logic Design. What does this mean and what's the benefit?
So this is where we're getting that real-time component to the environment. So you can see here that we have different pickup points within the environment because we want to be able to not just see how a call is performing at the endpoint, we also want to see how is it performing at these different checkpoints within the network. So I want to see both sides of the expressway here. I want to see as it's coming from endpoints into CUCM or CMS or both sides of the SBC. And so we're able to correlate across these multiple legs of the call within the environment.
Nectar's UCMP for Cisco UCCE work. It works with contact centers. Would you give us some insight into this?
Contact centers bring very complex call flows. What this is an example of is a customer of Nectar's that deployed to 3 large contact center calling environments, 2 of which are kind of expanded upon on the Texas and Ohio call center, so you can see in more detail what we're looking at. But UCD was deployed within these 3 environments for the voice VLANs that were sitting within the environment. And then we're able to actually correlate across all of the call legs within this environment so that they can quickly isolate what could be causing issues for calls coming into their environment, getting to agents, and then transferring between agents.
Would you continue the discussion about the contact center using this diagram?
Yeah, so this is an example of that, where in that particular environment, it took 17 legs to actually reach the first agent. And so what we're able to do is in UCD, we have the ability to do fine related sessions. We will pull back all of these legs into one consolidated view so that you can actually take a look at how was each of the legs impacted, what impacted those legs from all of these different components. Was there a network problem? Were one of these components impacting that call? Because in a contact center environment, knowing what may have caused a call problem, or specifically even around disconnects, is it a customer that hung up the phone, or was it something in the environment that actually disconnected or caused a call problem?
Stephen, this brings to mind that you really have an architecture rather than just a set of tools. Is that correct?
That's true. And the product is designed to work in multiple different types of unified communications architectures. So the product's going to work really well for managed service providers and UCaaS providers, as well as large, complex enterprise accounts that have multiple sites across multiple locations, and then being able to give them consolidated views. So if I'm an MSP or a UCaaS provider, I'm going to be able to get a view across all of my multi-tenanted deployments. If I'm a large-scale enterprise customer, I want to be able to get a view across my entire infrastructure. And then we have the ability to break that down for them and give them that level of visibility.
I'd like to point out for the viewers here that we have 2 very good resources here. Nectar for Cisco, one paper, and then Nectar UCD for Cisco contact centers, use case, both of which relate very much to what we've just talked about. If you're interested in contacting Nectar, here's the URL for sales information. And I'd like to thank you, Stephen, for today's EDUcast.
Thank you. Goodbye.